you're quite entitled to have an opinion. We all live having opinions, but we have to know what their truth status is. They're not the truth. They are a response, a positioning. So if you want to take responsibility for your actions, we behave out of our beliefs and out of our opinions. And sometimes how we have construed the situation doesn't fit with how other people construe the situation. So we get a run-in. And if there are more of the other people, or the other person has more power than you in a hierarchical situation, you'll be in the wrong. What does that mean? Is that something which should be tattooed on your heart? That this is who you really are? Or is it a situational positioning which arose due to causes and conditions? If it's the latter, then you start to have some room to maneuver. And so in that sense, we might be trying to analyze the story, not in the manner of psychoanalysis, but of trying to show that whatever is solidified is actually a link on a chain. And if we can put together the chain, both the historical family environment in which these tendencies developed, the nature of the voice in the head, who does it remind you of, your school teacher or your dad or whoever, coming to see that what's restaged is a particular theatre, a particular drama. And the reason that these scenes are there, the reason that these actors are on the stage, is something that can be understood. So when you feel humiliated, exposed, abject, cast down, that's because of the momentum of the script. Now, the theatre is not real. Aristotle says, in order to enter into the spirit of the drama, you have to suspend disbelief. That is to say, you have to become a monk. It's not true, but you act as if it's true. You go to the opera and the overture starts. You're in it. You've let yourself go into it. Now what's happened with people in these intense states of self-hatred, these kind of neurotic states, is that they believe in a drama, but they believe it to be true. So giving up the disbelief is a middle way between a belief. If you're reading a novel, you know it's not completely true. Yet you have to read the novel as if it's true. Same in the movie, same in the theatre. So between belief and disbelief, there's suspending disbelief. Does that make sense? It's a kind of deconstructive move. You haven't removed it completely, but it's hollowed out. So I'm acting as if. And it's that as if-ness that makes life viable. For example, we're all going to die. We don't know when we're going to die, but we have to live as if we're not going to die. Because if you woke up in the morning and you start thinking, maybe today I'm going to die, I don't know what to do, I'm not going to do any shopping, what would be the point? I might be dead by tonight. So we have to act as if life will go on. And it's an illusion, because it's a definite fact we're all going to die. It's unpredictable how and where and when, and yet we're going to live. I think that's the point of play, interplay of the healthy adult. And I think we can link that right back to Winnicott's writing on play. Because that's what the child does in play, isn't it? That play becomes the zone of the development of the transitional object. In fact, everything in life is a transitional object, because you never get to the other side. We're always in transit across these unformed moments, what in Tibetan are called bardos, intermediate periods. We're always having left somewhere and going somewhere else. We have been born and we will die, and in between we go through these into something, out of something, into something, out of something. So clinically helping somebody who is full of self-hatred, I think the first thing is to feel the emotional density of that, which is often reinforced by the idea nobody understands. You can't get, nobody else can really know what it's like to be me. This is both an existential truth and quite psychotic. It is absolutely true, nobody will understand us. But if it's done in a way, therefore what's the point? That I'm living in this whirling desert where nobody can touch me, that becomes psychotic. The fact is, we each have this ungraspable, unique experience, and we communicate. Or to put that in Buddhist language, from the point of view of wisdom, as we sit here in our embodied being, what is arising for us is not shared by anyone else, and is also ungraspable by ourselves. We can never find ourselves. We can find our watch, our purse, we can find where we maybe parked the car, but you can't find yourself. The self is showing itself in its ungraspable becoming. Now, if you have that point of view, the idea that you could show directly who you are would be ridiculous. That's why many of these texts say, or like the famous Tao Te Ching, those who know don't speak, those who speak don't know. Because it's actually unsayable. It's like, going for a walk in this gorgeous weather and seeing the sun across a tree. It's beyond representation. It's absolutely there. Fills the whole of you. And there's no doggy bag. There's nothing to take home. It's just it. In the same way, that's what we all live with. And on one level, it's quite mad. Because then we talk as if that's not what's the case. We talk as if we're all in the shared world and we all understand what we mean by, struggles at work or having a bad boss or things like that. So part of the issue of people who live in a very intense self-definition is that they're not able to play the games of conversation whereby we take up different positions about things. So if you're talking with a close friend about trouble at work, you could tell them just how bad it is. If you were at a dinner party with people you didn't know very well, that's not very polite. You should make it a little bit light. You shouldn't talk too long so that other people can come in, because that's that particular kind of conversation. So from that point of view, neurosis is the collapse into a too narrow definition. And the function of meditation from the therapist's point of view is to stay relaxed and open without being pulled into a position. So that takes us back to the question of transference and countertransference. That the particular perception, misperception that the client has of you, what we call the transference, that they're seeing as other than we feel ourselves to actually be, is then met by our reaction to that, which hooks elements of their distorted perception, but also elements of our own. This is quite a complex movement of experience. Again, it goes back to Freud's notion of the free-floating attention. Coming to a premature interpretation of the transference is usually not helpful. It takes time to unfold. In the old days, people used to talk of gathering the transference. It's not as if it's something that's there. People nowadays talk about something very real. What's the transference? How should I know? It hasn't arrived yet. But it's as if it should be there. What shape of nose do they have? What colour of eyes do they have? It's not like that. It's not a thing. And this tendency to give thing-like shapes to people is very, very distorting. The dead are waking up.
That's more is all locked in with them. Because the chain's going down, the drawbridge is up.
We're doomed. So, in terms of how do we help somebody who's trapped in something very tight, we have to keep loosening. Having a strong belief about our patient probably doesn't help. If we really can accept everything I know is simply an opinion, then we hold it lightly, and we can also offer it lightly as food for thought, something you might chew on for a bit. But I don't know what your experience is, and I don't know what you should do. What we can do is try to find together some way of moving when at the moment you're rather stuck. How that movement should be, where that movement will take you, I can't predict. Will it feel good or not? I don't know. Well, you're not going to get an NHS supplier's contract if you say that. Because you have to be able to predict your outcome.
In 6 sessions.
So it's quite difficult. So, we can coerce people out of situations. You can take a pin and get a winkle out of its shell. But that's a violence. And this is one of the problems, that if the more you work with attunement and subtlety, it's very powerful, but it's not subject acting on object. It's not even subject acting on subject. It's opening the sphere for the possibility of the synergy of the movement of two subjects who are sort of shimmering on the edge of their new becoming, neither of whom can know where it will be. What we can predict is what I'm stuck in. So every time somebody's making a definitive statement, they're actually just announcing their neurosis or their fixed pattern, their habitual formation. That's the problem. And so it's, how can we find a way of living ourselves with not knowing, helping other people to see that actually they don't know, and a large part of their suffering is because they have to pretend that they know when they don't know, and therefore they tell lies, and to try to open that up as a more alive and vibrant way of being in the world. As if you remember, when you see your first patients, you're kind of preparing in advance things you might say. You're full of anxiety about saying the wrong thing, and after a while you just meet them and you start talking. They're very anxious, but you get more at ease because you trust and we can have a conversation. Sometimes it flows easily, and sometimes it's weird, and sometimes it's kind of really, really painful and difficult, and we get stalled, we get ruptures in the therapeutic alliance, and life goes on. What we have there is, through hard-won experience, is a sense, it'll be okay. That this event now is just a bead on the chain. It's not the thing itself. It's not the truth. Oh God, I don't think I can see this person anymore. I don't know what to say to them. It's terrible. People come into supervision saying that. I don't think I could see them anymore. So the person's lost their seat. They've lost their body, haven't they? They've lost their breath. They've lost their heart. So the question is, how do you get back into being yourself? And that simple practice that we were doing before lunch, when you're sitting, just can relax into the out-breath, and then you're just sitting. Life is tumbling on. Some of what's tumbling are thoughts which feel like my thoughts. Some of it is my feelings. Some of it is noises. Some of it's movements in my body. Nothing is stable. If nothing is stable, you cannot be caught. When you catch yourself, it's like a dog biting its own tail. You've just made a little circle. Because what catches you when you catch yourself is a thought catches a thought. Does that make sense?
So
I can't.
Example that. It gives an example of that. What you mean is a thought catches a thought.
Right. So, someone invites me to a social setting, if I've got social anxiety, I don't want to go. I'd hate it. How do you know you'd hate it? I just know I'd hate it. I hate these things. Okay? These are thoughts chasing each other around, and these thoughts are affirming each other. I know who I am. I know what it will be like. I know I won't like that. I can't do that. And these are impermanent thoughts. Are they true or not? Because probably for that socially anxious person, under certain circumstances in their life, they were okay in a social situation. Right? So the potential of their being to engage with different people in different situations is still there. But their belief that they can't do it is being strongly affirmed. So a thought is chasing a thought, is chasing a thought. And inside that kind of solipsism, that closed self-referential false proof, they can convince themselves, I just couldn't do it.
And then that will impact on behaviour.
Absolutely.
And that will impact, and then it becomes another vicious circle.
I wouldn't be me if I did that. Don't ask me to do it. I couldn't do it.
So the more times I don't do it, the more that becomes me then.
That's right. Which goes back to Kath's point earlier about, the power of these beliefs, that they become something we inhabit.
Sure.
And of course, a habit is like a monk's habit. It's something that you wrap around you. You're both inside it, like inhabiting a house, and wrapped in it. So there's a kind of cozy smothering inside. It's a sort of false self-soothing.
Okay, so working with that, are you going to work cognitively with that, in disputing and enabling the person to dispute? Are you going to work behaviourally with that, in getting them to realise that it's not the garlic around the neck, it's the vampires away?
Okay, yeah. Well, maybe the first thing would be is, if we relax and we are spacious, we'll feel their fear.
Yeah.
It doesn't help to be violent towards people with fear. So from that relaxed spaciousness, we want to proceed in a way that doesn't shame the person and put them on the spot. They've already got a harsh negative moralizing reading about themselves and their inadequacy. So there are lots of directions we don't want to go into. That starts to show us, in a sense, where we might go. I mean, what I'm trying to show today is that this is not about a fixed technique. If you do a 6-week, 8-week training in mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy, you'll get a package that you can just plonk down. But how should we be with this particular person? First of all, we want to let them reveal themselves, and that will close down many doors of our competence. There'll be lots of things that we could do with the generic patient, but I can't do with this person because of how they are. So we have to be willing to let the actual lived state of the patient determine the moves we make. I think that's the first thing. That's the ultimate non-violence, isn't it? That's when we're really a therapist. Remember, the root of therapy is the word for attendant, the attendants in the shrines of Asclepius. So to be an attendant means to come after. We tend to. The shepherd tends their flocks. That is to say, the sheep wander hither and thither, and the shepherd keeps up with them. So there is a stepping back from the power of control, directing the other, shaping the event, but paralleling that, a very intimate proximity to the actual state of the other. So we're not invading them, we're not abandoning them. And I think that's, again, just the more relaxed and open we are, being on that shifting boundary becomes possible, what in Gestalt we call the contact boundary, which sometimes has to be very gentle and minimal. From that, we then feel the way to go forward, but we can't know. We can't know. And I think that's the central thing. Experience has to precede knowledge. If knowledge precedes experience, it is structurally violent. Now, this, of course, again, is difficult to sell in the NHS. But for our patients, That's the thing. Now, we then have to find a way to have optimal openness to all the ingredients that we have managed to have contact with in the course of our lives. That could include a lullaby. Sometimes I sing to my patients. Sometimes I enact a little drama for them. Because why wouldn't you? Sometimes I tell them a story. Tell them the story of the three little piggies, which is the fundamental story of psychotherapy. Once upon a time, there were three little piggies and they lived in the forest. Piggy number one looked up at the sun, so warm. Ah, I'm happy to be alive. No problems. At night it was a little chilly, so he took some straw from the field and he made a little straw house for himself. Second little piggy said, it's good to be alive. I like walking in the forest, but sometimes a bit cold in the morning. I need more than straw. So he got some twigs and branches and he made a little twig house for himself and he'd sit inside that. That was very nice. Third little piggy, a little bit driven, a little bit anxious and worried. Maybe it will get worse, I don't know. So he went into the forest. He dug up some truffles and he found some mushrooms and he put them in his little wheelbarrow and he took them to the market. He sold them to the people. Money. Then with the money he bought some bricks. He put them in his wheelbarrow, took them back to the forest. And slowly, bit by bit, every day, he built a brick house. Summer went by. Autumn came. The wind was a little bit more cold. Autumn went by. Winter started to come. Very cold. Piggy number one in straw house shivering a little bit. Oh, summer will come soon. Oh, summer will come soon. But that night, piggy number one very frightened, so he runs next door into piggy number two. Two frightened little piggies crunching about in a twig house. What do we do? What do we do? Oh, our dear brother. Hello, hello. Knocking on the door. Who is there? Oh, it's us, your best friends. We who helped you all summer long to build your house. Okay. Being the wise and sensible and caring one, he opens the door and they come inside. Then, the wolf comes. Sniffs the straw house, dinner's gone. Sniffs the twig house and dinner's gone. Brick house. Scratching and scratching, climbs up on the roof. I smell piggy. Goes down the chimney, into the pot. And the pigs live all winter on wolf soup. Why is this story important? Because the balanced human being has these three pigs as part of them. You need to be able to play in the summertime and imagine troubles will never come. You need to be a little bit thoughtful and get things open on time. Open your letters every day when they arrive. Don't hide them. There will never be a better day to look at the bill. And you need a bit of piggy number three to really take care of your life and act as if danger will come. But our patients tend to have a bias, don't they? Too much piggy number one, narcissistic, self-indulgent, all over the place. Piggy number three, obsession compulsive, driven, life is very greedy. So, balancing these things. It's a very nice story to tell patients. Then they can understand something more about their life. It's saying these are themes of existence. Also, movies are very, very good for patients because it normalizes what seems like a terrible grief, especially going back to Jennifer's point about the patient who's persecuted by an over-moralized sense of responsibility. I've messed up my life, it can never get better. Many films show how there's an interconnectedness between people. That again can be very useful. So, we don't know what to what to bring forward in the session, but we can allow our life to flow through us. Everybody here knows something about shopping, knows something about some kind of sport, knows something about cooking, knows something about holidays. know something about misery, loneliness, sadness, hopes, fears, I would think. Yeah? All of that can come through. How will we know if it's right?